All right, welcome everybody to the first episode of the Sports Authorities. I'm Nathanael Rorie. My co-host here is Jordan Hart. This is our first episode of our sports podcast. We're looking forward to starting this. We're going to talk about everything sports. We both watch all sports and we love to talk about it.
Hmm.
So I know Jordan, you're excited as well, and I'm very
Very
excited to
excited.
start this. A little bit about
Yep.
myself. My name is Nathaniel. I'm a freshman sport administration major at Belmont University, soon to be double major in data science. So big stats guy. You know, just my favorite teams, the Chiefs, clearly, as well as the Royals, University of Missouri, Pacers, Blues, all that stuff. Jordan, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, I'm Jordan Hart, and if you haven't noticed by the room yet, I'm a big Hoosiers fan. I'm actually a freshman majoring in sports marketing and management at Indiana University. Like I said, major fan of IU. Football team for NFL is probably the Dolphins. Pacers fan in NBA. And that's about it, honestly. I can't really think of anything else. I'm just really excited to get going with this podcast. I don't know about you, Nathaniel. I'm just ready.
Right on. So I know this week we're going to start with Jordan. I know you have some hot takes. If you'd like to start us
Oh,
off,
oh.
recapping the games we saw this week in college football. I was going to start, Pac-12 championship. Oregon takes away USC's slight playoff long
Yep.
shot. It's an
That
upset, not too shocking. Neither team had a prayer at the
I
playoffs, so
I don't really
the
think it
game's
mattered much.
honestly pretty irrelevant.
Yeah, I don't think it mattered much. I think the only big thing was that USC doesn't get a New Year's Six game. That was
That's
the
true.
main
No New
thing.
Year's
Oh,
Six game for
Oregon got it.
USC.
Oregon got it over
Uh,
them. So
It's true. Did USC opt out of their bowl game? Did I see that?
I don't
Maybe,
know.
maybe
There's
not.
been way too many teams that have opted out that I can't even keep track anymore. It's kind of
Wouldn't be
annoying.
surprised. They are in California, so it's
Yeah.
a tough go out there right
Well, I
now.
mean, we had,
Uh,
I don't know if you saw, but three of the non needed Big Ten teams decided, oh, we're not going to play in a Big Ten, or we're not going to play in a bowl game. Michigan State,
yeah.
you weren't getting one. Don't worry about it.
Oh, good old Sparty. Uh,
Yeah.
Moving on to the first big game of the day, the Ohio State Buckeyes versus the Northwestern Bearcats. I mean, or Wildcats, rather. I think they're Wildcats, right?
Yeah, the
Wildcats. I'm pretty sure
Wildcats.
Wildcats. Uh, I mean, I didn't. I watched the second half of this game. Trey Sermon's a beast.
Uh,
I mean, what else can we
yeah.
say? I was a little surprised by this outcome. Were you?
Uh, so I'm not, and that's mainly because I am a Hoosiers fan and I paid attention to every game this year. So
Right.
first of all, I'm not surprised by how the first half went. I knew Northwestern was going to come out and have the lead going into the half. I knew Justin Fields was not going to be that great coming out. I know Justin Fields is not that good as everyone makes him out to be. He should not be even in the Heisman talk for this year, but that's not. We're not going to focus on that right now.
Hot
Second
takes.
half came. Yes, I am surprised though by Trey Sermon coming in and dropping a big one on them, and that was the main reason why they won that game. If they didn't have him, I honestly don't know if Ohio State wins that game, and they don't make it to the playoff without him. I don't think so. And
Yeah, I
I mean, props to them. They won it. I'll give them that. But I don't know. That's a tough one to take. Honestly, I would not have expected Northwestern to keep it that close.
for sure. I mean, I Northwestern has a good defense. We knew that coming in. But I mean, the last Northwestern game I watched was them losing to Michigan State, and I thought coming in, I was like, Ohio State's going to name the score. I mean, this is Ohio State Big Ten championship
Yeah.
game. It's usually a blowout. I thought Ohio State by at least 17 coming in. And then I sit down on my couch once I get home from work to watch the end of the game and realize that Ohio State didn't even score a touchdown in the first half. And then saw
Yep.
that Trey Sermon had over 200 rushing yards and was trying to figure out how that added up, and just realized that was all in the second half. Um, I mean, I've watched some Ohio State this year, so I was expecting if anyone that would have been Master Teague, great name by the way, would have all those rushing yards.
Yeah.
But dude, Trey Sermon, dude is a stud. But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely not the confidence booster the Buckeyes needed going into a playoff
Definitely
game
not.
with the Clemson Tigers.
I'm
Um,
surprised. Did you see they're only a 7-point favorite over the Buckeyes?
They are. That is a little bit surprising to me. Not really
I don't
sure.
know.
I'm
I'd
not
call
convinced
both
Ohio
games
State's.
7 point. No, they're bad. I would going into this game, I have no chance. I'm putting any money on Ohio State. I would say Clemson by at
Uh,
least 14.
yeah, I would hammer Clemson to cover that if I was a betting man.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not old enough to bet on sports, but if I
Mm.
could, I would.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I've got to talk about in that game. I think Ohio State's a little disappointing, but definitely still deserves to make the playoffs, even though they did only play half a dozen football games. But
Yeah. One
our
last
next,
thing, real quick. Hold
mhm.
on. One last thing, real quick. I want to throw it out there. If no one knew this, that quarterback for Northwestern, Nate Sudfeld, guess where he was just last year? IU.
IU,
So,
baby.
we're just rolling the quarterbacks
Not
out
Nate
right now.
Sudfeld. Nate Sudfeld's. It's not Nate Sudfeld. Nate Sudfeld's in the NFL.
His name's is he? Which one is it?
His
What's his
name's
name?
his name's close to that, but it's not. Nate Sudfeld was with the Eagles, I think. Isn't he like the Eagles
Yeah,
third string? Or
he
he
is.
was at
Now
one
that I
point.
think about that, that's not the right one at all. I'm sorry. That's terrible on my end. What is the quarterback's
I
name?
think his name does start with Nate though.
It's something. Hold on, I'm looking. Peyton Ramsey. I'm completely off.
Peyton
Holy
Ramsey. There you go.
wow,
Yeah, doesn't
that's terrible.
Nate Sudfeld?
Sudfeld is with the Eagles. He's like the third string. But next game of the day, was it Clemson and Notre Dame?
Ohio State, Oklahoma,
Oh,
which I
Iowa
know
State,
Jordan
Oklahoma.
feels
Yeah.
strongly about.
Ah, I I've got a lot of words that I'm not gonna say, but I will say this: Iowa State does not deserve to be 10th in the rankings. They got destroyed that first half. I don't know if you saw the score, but I'm pretty sure it was 17-7, and it was not reading 17-7 after the first half stats. I will give them the fact that they came back in the second half. But if you just look
Mhm.
at how their season went and then how they played that game, I don't know how you can tell me they get 10th after that game and still stay in a New Year's Six game. I just don't. I personally don't think they have enough skill behind them, especially finishing out the season like that, to be able to perform well in a game like that.
Yeah, they were definitely the beneficiaries of a quite weak Big 12, for
Yes.
sure. Brock Purdy's a stud. Not really sure what his draft. Not sure if he comes back. I would
Mm,
assume he probably declares and goes.
yeah,
I would also assume Matt Campbell gets a better head coaching job as well.
I hope
Iowa
so.
State's a good team.
Yeah,
They're just definitely overranked. I mean,
definitely.
saw what 8-3 is what they finished on the year.
Yeah,
A good squad, and that 8-3 record looks a lot better in a normal 12-game season versus whatever we ended
definitely.
up with now, for sure. I think Oklahoma, dude, terrible start to the
I
season, right? 1-2,
but
you lose a
they
couple games
yeah.
you just absolutely can't lose if you're Oklahoma when your goal
Mhm.
is to win the Big 12 and be in the playoff every single year. But dude, they finished the season on a roll. The same weak Big 12 that Iowa State had the advantage of, obviously. But I mean, dude, listen, you start season 1-2, but then went out with a true freshman quarterback and Spencer Rattler, and I mean, dude, you got a lot to look forward to in the future with Spencer Rattler, dude. Because I mean, I know
Yes,
he struggled at times this year, but man,
it's his
Lincoln
freshman
Riley's
year.
offense is still fantastic, and that
Exactly.
Oklahoma will be back and better than next year. Not sure about their final ranking of number 6, but we'll get into more of
Uh,
that later. But
yeah,
Oklahoma finishes on a roll. They roll Iowa State. A little sus toward the end,
it
but
was,
typical
but I think
Oklahoma. Oklahoma has sus defense, so
yeah. No, I think the score doesn't tell the tale of the game. I think that Oklahoma had just a better game all around. I think Spencer Rattler is going to be a name for households to know for years to
mhm.
come. I think everyone talking about Oklahoma's season, you got to realize they're the person running the offense is a freshman and started out the season rough in his first
Yeah,
season in college. Then he
yeah,
finished out the season winning every game by no problem. They didn't have any problem finishing out the season. Granted, they did lose
yeah.
to Kansas State for a second year in a row. I'll let that slide, but I don't think
They did.
sixth was where they should have been. But that I won't get
That
into that
Kansas
right now.
State loss looks much worse now when you look at Kansas State's record. But me being a big Big 12 football guy, Kansas State, if Skylar Thompson doesn't get hurt for the season, Kansas State maybe is a top 15 team here
True,
at the end of the year.
true.
So Kansas State, with Skylar Thompson,
I'll
when
give
they
you
beat
that.
Oklahoma, much better team. Still, as Oklahoma, you're not supposed to lose that game. But
No.
maybe in year
Mm-hmm.
3, Lincoln Riley will figure out Chris Kleiman's Wildcats. But yeah, Oklahoma, they're going to be back and better next year for sure. Still proves that
Definitely.
they are the team to beat in the Big 12 uh, with their win over Iowa State. The next game, the
Yeah.
big game of the day, Clemson and Notre Dame. dude, the Tigers just absolutely roll the Irish and honestly
Yeah,
make it
I
look
can't.
easy.
Yeah, I don't even have words. I came into this game talking about it like, oh yes, you had all these people gone for Clemson, but I don't see them getting past. I thought that Notre Dame offense was able to hold them off enough in the first outing to to pull that off, and then they come out
Mm-hmm.
and drop that on me. I'm like, I don't know about this team anymore. I really, after that game, I was contemplating if I would put them in the playoff because they don't look like a strong team. I don't trust Ian Book. I really don't. He's a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. I'll let him have his moments, but
mm-hmm.
I don't know if he can come to it in the clutch and be able to pull off a playoff, especially now that with them being paired with Alabama, which like we said we'll get to later, but I don't know if he can be big for them. Their team they also don't have those big hitters on their offense. They don't. They don't have names
Yeah.
to remember and they just aren't strong enough. And it showed in that game. Clemson was just the better team.
Yeah, I
I just
agree.
don't know.
I much like you. I thought it would be a close game. I picked Clemson coming in, thought they would win, but I thought it would be close. Not necessarily as close as the first one, but close back and forth game. But man, I mean, Clemson's offense
Mm-hmm.
rolling like they did, not surprising. We all know Trevor Lawrence is Trevor Lawrence, but man, Clemson's defense just stifles Ian Book. And I agree with you. I've never been very high on Ian Book. I was extremely impressed with what he did in South Bend earlier this year. I thought,
For sure.
and honestly, it gave me way more confidence in him going into this game. And he looked great all year,
Mm-hmm.
but man, he just still has not been able to put up in the big games. My confidence level
No.
with him is straight back to zero for the playoff.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I just don't think that offense has enough weapons to run with a team like Alabama, which we'll get into in a minute. But man, I mean, I just want to talk about a little bit more. Clemson, their offense, I mean, just ridiculous. Trevor Lawrence comes out, his
Yes.
first game back against a real competition since since the beginning of the year. Honestly, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
25 of 36, 322, 2 touchdowns a pick, and maybe even more surprising, rushes for 90 yards and adds another touchdown. I mean, the dude just looked like he's just moving on the football field with ease. I mean, to me, no one else just has looked. I mean, you talk about a guy in Trevor Lawrence who, takes over at Clemson his freshman year as a true starter and wins a national title. I mean, I don't know if anyone has had a 3 year stretch in college football as a starting quarterback where they just made everything look so easy as Trevor Lawrence
Yeah.
did. Not saying he had the best 3 years. I don't think that, but I mean, the dude from the time he had made his first start as a true freshman to now he's just
Yeah.
made it look so easy on the college football field. I mean, there's a reason he's the number one overall pick. I mean, dude is just an absolute stud. In my
Yep.
opinion, he's the Heisman Trophy winner. I know it's not popular. I know he missed a couple games.
That's a hot
But I
take.
mean, if we're talking about who the best player in college football is, I don't know how you watch that Clemson Notre Dame game and think that Trevor Lawrence isn't the best player in college football. Helps that he has Travis Etienne, who adds 124 on the ground on just 10 carries, which, I mean, dude, 12.4 yards per
That
carry
speaks
and
for
a
itself.
touchdown for Travis Etienne.
Mm-hmm.
I was shocked Travis Etienne didn't come out next year. He's undoubtedly one of the top running backs in the draft this year. Dude is just
Definitely.
a stud on the ground. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Clemson. I mean that's the most complete performance by one of the playoff teams against a ranked team that we've seen this year.
Yeah, I'll give you that, but I will up you one here since you are bringing up the topic of Heisman. Are you done with the Clemson Notre Dame game? Or you got
I
more to
mean,
add to it?
that's about all I got. I just think, I mean, that's just the most dominant performance we've seen from a top 25 team or from a playoff team against a top 25 team, let alone the number 2 team in the country coming in. I mean, just pure dominance from the
Fair enough.
Tigers.
Fair enough. Let me raise you one real quick. Let's go on to Alabama and Florida real quick. This one was a shootout down there. I don't know how you
Absolute
could say this
thriller.
wasn't the best ending to a day. I don't know
Oh,
how you couldn't say this was the best ending to
absolute
a championship
thriller.
weekend. And this is where I bring up the Heisman. You've got 3 people on this Alabama team that I
Oh,
could put in that conversation right there, right to you right now. Let's talk about Mac Jones real quick. He was 33 for 43 on completions, 418 yards for 5 touchdowns and 1 pick. I'm sorry, but if you look at that, I don't know what screams Heisman more than him. Now, the conversations going to this weekend from what I've seen is Devontae Smith is getting more Heisman respect than him, who is getting thrown to from him, don't get me wrong, he had 15 catches for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a lot as well. You can't go past that. I don't want to make predictions or anything, but honestly, this is right now, looking at the squads, this is my strongest team in college football right now. This team is really strong offensively. You've got Najee Smith. You've got the whole offense put together. This defense, even though it hasn't proven to me yet that it can stop an offense that's good enough, it is a little sus. They did let Florida drop 40-something points on them. I honestly don't see a team that could come in and outscore Alabama enough because there isn't a defense strong enough to hold that strong core offense down. Do I think that Trevor Lawrence is a great quarterback? Yes, I'll give you that. I think it's going to end up being one of these Alabama boys that get Heisman. I don't see a stat coming out screaming to me saying that they shouldn't. Florida, on the other hand, with this game, I'm still baffled by their ranking, which we'll get to later. But them coming into this game, I really thought this was going to be a blowout. After what happened with LSU and throwing the shoe, and they threw in the towel that game, basically, on this season. But they came in and still dropped 46 points, right? I think it was 46.
Yeah, 52-46.
They still dropped 46, and Kyle Trask proved he is one of the, I would say, top 3 quarterbacks in the college football right now. I would say it's him, Mac Jones, and Trevor Lawrence right now. Those are the 3 that I would say are competing to be number 1. So don't get me wrong, Alabama's great, and Florida sucks right now. They are not having it right now. Kyle Trask is the only thing holding that team up there and keeping them in it. I don't know how you feel about this game, but that's how I felt.
Yeah, I agree. Kyle Pitts, for Florida's tight end, obviously a stud, just opted out. He won't play in the bowl game.
Yep.
Mac Jones absolutely has a case. I mean, his statistical numbers are just ridiculous. I mean, if we didn't just see Joe Burrow did what he did last year, people are talking about Mac Jones having one of the best statistical seasons ever. But it's just no one will ever replicate, at least I don't think for a long time, what Joe Burrow did. Obviously, massive stat line for Mac Jones. And I mean, I think going back to the Heisman talk, the problem with Devontae Smith for me, listen, best player, the Heisman is best player in college football, right? Devontae Smith is absolutely one of the best players in college football. I just don't see the Heisman award going to him. For a wide receiver to win the Heisman, they just have to do things where it doesn't matter who the quarterback is throwing to them.
Yep.
And I just don't know how people see that when you have quarterbacks like Mac Jones and Kyle Trask and Trevor Lawrence also in the picture for the Heisman. Najee, great season, obviously, right? For a running back to win the Heisman, we're talking they have to put up at least 1,600, 1,800 yards. Najee's just not quite there statistically. But I mean, obviously, fantastic season. Dude will be a great NFL player for sure. Just an absolute complete back. I mean, Mac Jones definitely has a compelling argument. To me, he is the most compelling argument against Trevor. He has better stats than Trevor for sure. Hasn't lost all year. Neither has Trevor. But I mean, just complete season. If Mac Jones wins, I won't be upset. I think he's also put together. It's just, to me, when you look at it, the best player in Heisman football, regardless of the stats. I know what the stats say. You give Trevor a couple more games, maybe his stats are closer. But the best player in Heisman football to me has been Trevor Lawrence. When he stepped on the field, there's just been no one better in college football. But, dude, Alabama versus Clemson, if that's what happens in the playoff, which, I mean, that's what I'm thinking. We'll get into more of that next week, talking our playoff predictions. But, man, I mean, to me, that this is almost more of a fun matchup than any of the Alabama Clemsons before because there's so much unknown between both teams. Without the full season, we've gotten a great glimpse, but we haven't seen the full season. So there's just a lot of unknown about both teams. But, hey, I mean, a great Heisman argument for both Mac Jones and Trevor Lawrence. Alabama rolls. I thought they would roll by more. Their defense still quite suspect. But, I mean, and versus Clemson's defense, who looked fantastic against Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame is no Alabama. But, I mean, their defense is still a little suspect, but it's Alabama. Until they lose, they're the number 1 team in the country. They are the favorites, in my opinion. One last game that I wanted to talk about before we talk about our final rankings. Cincinnati, a little disappointing against Tulsa. I think they needed a blowout. Not sure blowout. I think they could have beaten them 70-0.
And it wouldn't
still
have
doesn't rank them any higher than what they ended up doing. I was hoping they would blow them out just to, really show it to the committee. They didn't. Close game against Tulsa. Hats off to Tulsa. They played a good game. But a little disappointed by Cincinnati. Was really hoping they'd just go out there and just absolutely run them off the field.
True, but you got to look at it. That game was pouring rain. They were doing it in all the elements, and they got it off a kick. They got it off a field goal to end it. That was one of the, I would say, one of the best ways to end a a undefeated season for them, honestly. Other than the fact of getting into a playoff, obviously that would have been a lot better. But the way they won that game by a field goal in the elements and pulling it off and celebrating, I don't see how you could do anything else. Like, that's just the best thing in my opinion. Ending. I do want to, one little thing I want to throw out there. I'm impressed with San Jose State. They had a great season. I don't know if they went under the radar. Boise State didn't even think about them. And then they walk into that game, and look what happened. They're now champs.
They were the ranked team in that game.
Exactly. Boise State wasn't, and now look where they're at. And you can't. It was just a little thing I wanted to throw out there. But that team, I've been really impressed with them this year. I'm glad. That's another team that I'm glad they ended up getting the win in their championship. But
one last thing on Cincinnati before we talk about their heinous ranking. I mean, 4 years ago, I think I saw 4 years ago, Luke Fickell came in. They were 4-4, or what was it? Like, I think 4-8 when Luke Fickell first took over. Nothing special in the G5, and in 4 years, I mean, they had maybe one of the best G5 seasons we've ever seen. Absolutely deserving of a top 4 bid, in my opinion. We'll talk more about in a minute how far the playoff is, but I mean, dude, Luke Fickell, I don't know. I don't think he leaves Cincinnati this year. I don't think there's a compelling Power 5 job open that he'll take. I think he's going to take a big one whenever he does. But I mean, dude, Luke Fickell has coached that program. I mean, he's brought it completely back to relevance. One of the best G5 seasons we've seen. Lindauer is still there, as far as I know. I think he's like pretty far down the depth chart, but
no, he's not. He's not a name to know at all. But I just wanted to know because he is from Evansville.
I think he is still there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is still there.
All right. Are you ready for the rankings?
All right, Jordan. I'm gonna let you take it away. Let's hear what you got. College football rankings. So the final ones were released this morning.
I'm gonna start off with the beginning. Just gonna go down the line like they did. They decided to take an hour and a half to get past the first 4, which I was not very happy about. But you know what? We'll let it slide again. I'll let it slide. Because I like to be optimistic about this committee. I'm gonna get angry with them here in a minute though. Bama won. Obviously, that I don't see an argument there. That they are the best team right now in college football. Even though Trevor Lawrence and the Tigers have made a compelling argument, they did lose that first game against Notre Dame. Even though Trevor Lawrence wasn't there, you make all the arguments for it. Alabama's undefeated. You can't beat that with that record. That's the eye test. It's obviously Alabama number 1. I think we can both agree there. 2, obviously Clemson. That, once again, nothing surprising there. They won the championship over Notre Dame convincingly. They are number 2. 3 did surprise me, but I knew it was coming. Ohio State, I knew if they won their championship, they were getting a spot in the playoff. And I knew that if Clemson won the game, there was no way they put Notre Dame 3 and make them play a third time this year. So ultimately, when it came down to it, it would be very brutal. So ultimately, I knew Ohio State was getting their rematch from last year's game in the semifinals against Clemson. And then to top it off, I will say it was surprising to see Notre Dame actually pull it out number 4. I really thought Texas A&M would have snuck in there. Then again, you do got to take into account they don't want the Texas A&M Alabama rematch. Honestly, I wouldn't. I understand the committee's decision in putting Notre Dame 4. They did beat Clemson earlier on in the season. And now they are sitting there at 4, not having to play Clemson. They've got Alabama, and it's not a rematch. They don't want rematches. They want the new spicy games to make the playoffs interesting. Top 4, I don't see a problem with. 5, Texas A&M also is another. I think the top 5 is pretty set for me. I think the top 5 was good. It didn't change other than Notre Dame was 2, Clemson was 3, and then they flipped them. And Ohio State sat in the middle. It's a little sandwich between the 3. But other than that, like I said, I don't think it was a big problem. I think the rankings were pretty straightforward in the first 5. I agree with the committee there. 6 is where they lost me. This is where I start getting a little angry. Oklahoma. Don't get me wrong, they've had a great season. And personally, when I first started looking down the polls before the rankings came out, I agreed. I thought Oklahoma should be number 6 at first. I thought they were deserving after the season, coming back and taking that championship game. Then I realized Cincinnati. And then I realized some of the other teams that are sitting at 11 and 12. IU, Coastal Carolina, those teams that are sitting there at 1 or no losses. Granted, the committee will never give a Group 5 team any respect. I'm full-on decided Group 5, they need to make their own playoff for their own group, their thing. Because there's no way they're ever
who wouldn't watch Coastal, BYU, Cincinnati, and What's our fourth one?
Those San
Louisiana. Who
Jose,
wouldn't
those
watch
San
those?
Jose,
Who wouldn't watch those
those
four in a playoff?
Louisiana, San Jose, whatever. Exactly. Like I would watch it. That's entertaining.
That would
I
be
wouldn't be
I mean,
like
you're probably getting better semifinal matchups than the college football playoff.
exactly. They're probably going to be more high scoring too. I guarantee it because I guarantee those
Oh yeah.
defenses are not that strong to stop anybody. But Oklahoma,
I mean,
don't get me
Coastal
wrong,
BYU was the most entertaining college football game this
I
year.
was about to say, yeah, there was no game that topped
That
that.
game was fantastic.
Yeah. Before that, I would say that one of the most entertaining games was the IU Penn State game at the beginning of the year. I know Penn State had their year of downs and downs and downs, but
yeah.
the way that game ended with Penix doing the dive for the pylon and they called it and said touchdown. That's one of the best games this year, I would say. Even past my bias, I don't think you could even say there's many games though. But back to the rankings before I keep going on a rant and losing it. Oklahoma, like I said, at first I wasn't too big on them. Then I kind of flipped back and forth. I'm still not decided if I really like them being there. I think Cincinnati deserves 6. I really don't see how they are. I think Cincinnati should have bumped up. This is where they lost me completely. Why the heck is Florida 7? They were 7 when this weekend started and they lost. And they didn't get bumped back at all. Granted, Cincinnati's 8, so you can't really make a conversation for them. Georgia can't get put in front of them, obviously. They're not putting Georgia in front of them. And then 10 and 11 didn't play this week. Or 11 and 12, technically. Iowa State, we don't count in the ranking. But right now, at least. Right now, at least, I'm not counting. But IU and Coastal Carolina didn't play. So technically, I could see it where they didn't move them because there wasn't anybody to pass them. But Cincinnati, in my opinion, because I'm not the playoff committee, so I give respect to the group of 5. Group 5, all them. Cincinnati should be 6. I don't see how they're not. It blows my mind that this committee is just passing by these teams, which I'll let you take over for a little bit because I've talked for a little bit about it and voiced my opinion. But when we get down the line, there will be some more of me heated with this committee because they have some talking. They have some talking to do because I don't understand it.
Yeah, and I know you have some strong opinions about the New Year's Six bowl selections, but yeah, I mean I agree. Cincinnati to me definitely should be 6 ahead of Oklahoma. They're an undefeated season. Honestly, if I'm the committee, I mean, here's the thing: the top 3, there's no argument there. Yeah, I know what you can say about Ohio State. They didn't look like a playoff team. Guess what? They're an undefeated Power 5 champion. That's always going to get in. That's always going to be one of the top teams, and there's just no argument against that.
Exactly.
But number 4, I mean, I don't know how you can watch that Clemson game in Notre Dame and think that the Alabama game is going to go any better for them. You know, obviously the A&M Bama matchup is not very compelling. That doesn't, get a ton of viewers. Everyone probably just assumes Alabama runs off the field. Although I do think the rematch with them may be closer. A&M's gotten better as the season's gone on. But, I mean, you can't sit here and tell me that Cincinnati versus Alabama – I'm not saying Cincinnati's going to win. They probably lose by 3 touchdowns. But I think more people are excited to see Cincinnati play Alabama than Notre Dame – who the only other time they were in a college football playoff semifinal got ran off the field, just got ran off the field by Clemson, or Texas A&M, who got blown out by Alabama earlier in the year. No one wants to see those 2 games. No one wants to see Alabama versus Notre Dame. People will watch Clemson versus Ohio State. That should be a great game. Alabama versus Notre Dame will be at least a 3, probably 4, maybe even 5 touchdown game by the time it's all said and done. Alabama versus Cincinnati is way more compelling of a game. Way more people tune in. I don't see how the committee doesn't see that. It just baffles me. Oklahoma should not be at 6. I do think Oklahoma ahead of Florida is the right decision.
I'd put them 7.
But to me, Cincinnati absolutely just way better season than Oklahoma on paper. I think they have to be ranked 6. The committee is just absolutely just disrespect to the group of 5. Makes no sense. I mean, we thought UCF had a valid argument when they were undefeated a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, even better season, even more convincing, and just no respect. The other one I want to talk about, Coastal Carolina, not sure how they're at 12 with Iowa State at 10. Coastal Carolina 11-0, beat a legit top 20 team in BYU, and Iowa State has 3 losses, one of which to Louisiana Lafayette, who Coastal Carolina also played. Coastal beat Lafayette, Iowa State did not, and somehow Coastal they have a common opponent. Iowa State was at home too. The first game of the year, they should have absolutely won that game. They lost by 17 points, a 3-score loss. I think Coastal absolutely should be ranked ahead of Iowa State. Not saying Coastal should be ranked 10th. I think I believe IU is 11th, right?
They are 11th, yes.
I think IU should be 10, Coastal 11, put Iowa State at 12. That doesn't make any sense to me. I just uh, don't really see where just the disrespect to the group of five is just ridiculous. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I agree. The group of five needs to just. I'm not a fan of all this talk of let the Power Five break off and do their own thing. It's not as fun. You don't get your massive
Exactly.
non-con upsets and all that stuff. But I mean, as far as when it comes to championships, absolutely, if I'm the group of five, make your own
Yeah.
thing because the college football playoff is clearly shown that they do not care if you go undefeated, and unless you're the only time you're going to get lucky is if you schedule an Oklahoma or an Alabama at the beginning of the year and somehow pull off that upset.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, I mean, at that point, you're almost killing your chances at a New Year's Six bowl game because if you're a group of five, you basically have to go undefeated to make a New Year's Six. I mean, the committee, it's just the whole system just absolutely destroys group of fives. There's nothing there for them to be had. I mean, just look forward to your conference game and your bowl game because that's all you got if you're a group of
Exactly.
five team. Uh, but I mean, looking, I don't want to go too much into the playoff, but just briefly, you look at the playoffs. I've already said I don't think Alabama versus Notre Dame is a compelling option. I think
Mm-hmm.
Alabama just runs them off the field, and honestly, I think Clemson beats Ohio State
Oh
by a
yeah.
couple scores. It brings me to this point. I'd be interested. I want to find the stat. How many games 3 and 4 seeds have won since the college football playoff has been around? I don't think it's many. I for one love the playoff. From the idea of it. Four teams, you get a semifinal. It's fun. Gives you the shot of an upset. That's what we all love as American sports fans. We love upsets and playoffs. That's what we live for. That's why all of our sports leagues have playoff models so we can see upsets. That's why there's nothing that Americans love more than March Madness because
Mm-hmm.
you get Virginia losing to UMBC. But the difference between March Madness and the college football playoff is
4 teams.
Notre Dame ain't beating Alabama.
Yeah.
UMBC is going to beat Virginia, but even that only happens once in however many years has gone on. But
Mm-hmm.
there's so many teams in the college basketball, and obviously you can't do 64 in football, but you get those upsets. And I know people are saying, oh, if the 1 and the 2 seed wins every year with 4 teams, why would you want to expand it to 8? Well, you see, when there's 4 games and not just 2, there's more shots at upsets. And even you expand it to 16, once again, more shots at upset.
Mm-hmm.
Florida, who if you expand it to 8, last week just lost to LSU. That's an upset that can happen if you expand it
Yep.
to 8. I'm not saying the national champion is going to get upset or even
No.
the runner-up to the national champion, but you put the opportunity out there. It's way more thrilling than what we have now. And if they're not going to expand it, which I think they're going to, I think that happens in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Why not go back to the BCS game? We don't need. I mean, I know they're not going to
Right.
go back to the BCS because college football playoff makes a ton of money, more games, more money,
Yeah.
right? That's all the NCAA cares about.
Mm-hmm.
Come at me. But the BCS was 1 versus 2. That's what we get every year out of the college football playoff, anyways. And we don't have to
Exactly.
sit here and worry about who's in and who's not, just for them to lose to Alabama in the semifinal
Mm-hmm.
anyway. The college football playoff is just a flawed system. We've got to change it. We've got to expand. We've got to make it more interesting because what we have right now is just not working.
Yeah, and let me throw a little topic onto that. Like, that's the other thing with what March Madness does well that the playoff doesn't. When you have that 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15, that team that coming in as the underdog has a chip on their shoulder ready to go in there and destroy, no matter what team it is. You could go in there with a chip on your shoulder and get destroyed by 50, and guess what? They're still walking out of there thinking they should have won that. You do that, you put number 8 Cincy, because Cincy's 8 now. That's where they ranked them. You put 8 Cincy against Alabama. I don't even know if you could tell me with the amount of chip on their shoulder that game is more than a touchdown win for Alabama. I guarantee you it could probably be about a touchdown because Cincy's defense is good. I didn't get into that, but Cincy's defense is really good. But I don't think you can tell me that game happens. And then Florida plays Clemson. That I don't know who wins because Kyle Trask can pop off and win that
that's
for
a fun
them.
game. Yeah, it's here's the thing. If you expand it to 8 teams, you tell each of the Power Fives the champion gets an automatic bid. You tell the best group of 5 team they get an automatic bid, and then 2 at larges. It's a perfect model. I mean, it's honestly, in my opinion, right now, it's flawless. It's fun, and it's like you said, those teams, those underdogs in March Madness, they might lose by 50, but they're still coming in with a chip on their shoulder because their goal the entire season was just to make it there. Yeah, you can say, oh, it's no fun. They're just happy to be there. But you know what? Their entire goal that season was to win their conference tournament to get there. You take the group of 5s, their entire goal is to go undefeated and win their conference, and then they're automatically in the college football playoff. They might get ran by 20, but they still had a great season. They made the college football playoff, and it makes it way more exciting for those programs. You take like your mid majors in college basketball. their entire goal each year is to win their conference, to make your Vermonts, I mean, I know Gonzaga's a powerhouse, but they're in the West Coast. They're winning,
Yep.
Gonzaga, those teams that their automatic bid every year, is to make it. That's what makes it fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we love about college basketball, and that's what I think. If we put it in college football, why not try it? Because everyone's old. Everyone's just done with the college football playoff model. It's just
Yeah.
boring.
And if it doesn't work, take it back. It's
Take it
nothing.
back.
It's not like the Big Ten didn't just do that for Ohio State all year. But we were. I'm not going to get into that argument either. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'll stop myself from arguing for Ohio
And
State.
guess what? We already have the New Year's Six bowls, right? So
Yep.
New Year's Six bowls, those six bowl games, that's 12 teams. You take all your New Year's Six bowls, boom. Now you have 16 teams. You
Exactly.
just take your New Year's Six and make that into the playoff. You tell me more people aren't going to watch whatever. Pick
That's
any random
revenue
New Year's
right
Six
there.
game this year. You tell me more people aren't going to watch that if it's a college football playoff game than if it's a New Year's Six game. What does the NCAA love? Money.
Exactly.
NCAA loves money. College football loves money. The college football playoff, they love money. Expand it, make more money, make the fans like it more. It's a no-brainer. I don't see why we haven't done this yet.
Yep, you are completely right, and I agree with you. But let's move on to the bowl games real quick. We already established the playoff games, but let's get into the New Year's Six bowls. Obviously, the first two are the playoff games because they did that, where the two of them are the playoff games, and the four after that are the New Year's Six. So
Correct.
The first one I have on my page, is on December 30th, the Cotton Bowl. It's Oklahoma versus Florida. I'm actually really intrigued by this matchup. I think it's a great quarterback matchup. I think it's a great quarterback game. I think it's a high-scoring one. I think I take Oklahoma here. I know they're ranked higher, but I just don't. I think they're on a roll right now, and Florida's on a downward spiral. I think they do bounce back from how they've been playing in the past two games, but I do think Oklahoma ends up winning that.
I agree. I agree with you. I'm also going to take Oklahoma here. I think if Florida still has Kyle Pitts, I think more about Florida more, but without Kyle Pitts, I know they still have Kadarius Toney, but I mean that's just a massive loss for Kyle Trask. I also wouldn't be surprised to see Kyle Trask opt out of this game. I know this is a game where he can prove his draft stock, but I mean he's had a great season. I'm not sure what else he can really improve against a team like Oklahoma, who's not known for having a great defense. But if Kyle Trask plays, I totally expect both teams to score at least 5 touchdowns in this game. This should be a shootout. You're going to think you're watching a Big 12 game when you watch this game. Florida doesn't have a defense, but they do have a stellar offense, and I think just absolute shootout galore in this game if Kyle Trask plays.
Exactly. Second game we got on January 1st. I have a feeling I know who you're going here, but it's the Peach Bowl. It's in Atlanta, the Cincinnati versus Georgia. Who you got?
Yeah, I got Cincinnati here. I think they're just the better team, more complete defense. But if Georgia, here's the thing. Georgia is still a good team. They've gotten better since they put JT Daniels in at quarterback. People forget JT Daniels played really well at USC before he got injured and lost his job to Keaton Slavis, who just having a great year. I don't know. A lot of people don't watch Pac-12. Pac-12 is irrelevant. I get it. But Keaton Slavis is a great quarterback. But JT Daniels now at Georgia. I think JT Daniels is going to have a great year next year. He threw for over 300 yards multiple times in his starts in the SEC. Played really well. I wouldn't be shocked if they beat Cincinnati. I'm still taking Cincinnati. I think they have a great defense. Think they put it together and really stick it to the committee here. But it's a good matchup. I think Georgia. A lot of people forgot about them. They lost their games early, but now they have JT Daniels in a quarterback. Much better team. It should be a fun game in my opinion. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I do agree that it's gonna be a great game, and I'm actually gonna have to take Georgia here. I do love. Don't get me wrong. I love Cincinnati and how they're playing. My hot take is Georgia is going to be the top team in the country by the end of next season, and I'm calling it right now. That team is well put together, and they are spiking at the right time, and they're going to come into this game. And I'm sorry, Cincinnati, I love you and how you're playing. You are a Group 5 team, and Georgia is a powerhouse SEC team. This is going to be a 2-touchdown game from Georgia at least. And they're going to just walk through this game like it was nothing. It's just like when LSU played UCF a couple years ago. As much as I loved UCF going into that, LSU was bound to win that. I think it'll be a lot closer this game. The Cincinnati Georgia game will be a lot closer than that one. But ultimately, the first half's going to go slow. It's going to be close. It'll be a little bit of back and forth, and then Georgia's second half is going to take off because it's the SEC team and it's what they do. I love this Cincinnati team, but I full-heartedly believe Georgia's going to get this game, and they will next year be one of the if not the top team in the country. I don't see how you can say it.
Those are hot. I can't wait to talk about that more before next year. But
yeah,
I mean, I don't think I would not be surprised to see Georgia win this game. I'm rolling with the Bearcats, but I think it could be a good game for
It
sure.
could go either way. I can give you that. I'll give you that. That could go either way. I could see it going either way that night. Next game. This is the joke one. I don't even really want to talk about it, but we got to because it's a New Year's Six game. January 2nd. It's the Fiesta Bowl. Tell me how 25 Oregon and 10th Iowa State are going to be in this game, and who do you got?
Well, I can tell you why Oregon's in that, and that's because they won the Pac-12, so they
Well,
automatically get in.
that's fair. Yeah.
It's unfortunate because I do think USC is probably the more entertaining team. They just didn't show up in the first half against Oregon. Really disappointing.
Yep.
Iowa State gets in because I can't really tell you. I don't know why Iowa State's in. I think they're ranked too high. We've already been over this. It stinks. It's just another flaw exposed by the committee's just flawed logic here. I don't really know why they should be in. I would much rather watch IU beat Oregon in this game. Wouldn't be surprised to watch Iowa State show up and completely lay an egg and get ran over because that's what Iowa State does in big games, in football and basketball, honestly, which stinks. I like the Cyclones. I enjoy rooting for them, but they just tend to lay eggs. Hopefully, we still get to see Brock Purdy in this game. I mean, like I said, I'm not sure what he's thinking about NFL-wise. But, I mean, potentially a big game for Brock Purdy to improve his draft stock. Talk about a guy who has all the talent on planet Earth and just has been so up and down statistic-wise in his college career. A great chance for him to improve his draft stock if he decides to go. It's an intriguing game. Honestly, I think it's a coin flip. I don't know who wins. There's no outcome in this game that surprises me at this point. Probably, I mean, I guess I'll watch because I'm a sports junkie and I have nothing else to do with my life. But, I mean, I can't say I'm thrilled to watch this game.
No, I'm not either. And first of all, I don't even know how Oregon. I get they won their. They have to be ranked, obviously. They won their championship. But in and out all season long, I was never impressed with this team. They started out well, and then they lost to Oregon State and California 2 games in a row, and then weren't able.
Just bad losses.
And then the one game they could come back, they get canceled against Washington. So I don't know how. First of all, you can put them in a New Year's Six bowl, let alone keep them ranked. I just don't. They don't have the resume for me. They don't make it in. They don't do anything for me to prove to me that they deserve to be in this New Year's Six bowl and can compete. Now, they did though Iowa State against them, who I don't believe should be in a New Year's bowl either. But here we are. So I think it's the same way. I think it's a coin flip. I am a full heart believer that Oregon is past its time anymore. I don't think it's a football powerhouse anymore. I think it's on the down. I think it's on the downhill spiral.
I think it's on the upside.
And it's heading out.
I think what Mario Cristobal is doing there. I think he's recruiting. He just had the best recruiting class in Oregon history. I actually think Oregon's on the up. I think Oregon wins the Pac-12. Maybe not wins Pac-12 next year. I think them and USC are back in the title game though. USC with Keaton Slovis coming back as a junior, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think is his name, wide receiver for USC. I don't know if anyone's watched USC this year. That dude is a stud. USC is very good. But, I mean, yeah, Oregon, they're required to be in a New Year's Six because they won the Pac-12. That's just the rules by the stupid committee. I think it's dumb. I'd rather see USC than they just lost Oregon in this game. I think USC versus Iowa State is a fun game. I think that's probably a shootout. You have 2 stud quarterbacks in Brock Purdy versus Keaton Slovis, which would be absolutely just fun. I think it makes the game way more intriguing. But, yeah, I think it's a coin flip. No outcome in this game surprises me.
Yeah, and like I said, even though Oregon can have whatever they've got going on, they've been supposedly on the upcoming every year the past 3 years, and every time they lose a game, they aren't supposed to. And this year just didn't prove anything different. Granted, it's COVID, and you can say whatever, and they weren't even expecting to have a season until Big Ten decided to come back, and then they were like, oh crap, we got to do something. But they didn't prove to me this year that they're a top team. They didn't. They were ranked high, and then they lost twice to teams that they shouldn't have lost to at all. And then UCS, as I love them and I think they'll be better next year, they were not ready for this season. And I think it proved in that game yesterday. They were not ready for that Oregon game, and that's why Oregon won. I think that's the only reason why Oregon won. I think UCS should have won it. But I honestly don't know what went through the committee's mind in this game and said Iowa State and Oregon is the best game to put here. I just don't.
I don't get it either. Not a good one to watch. What's our last one?
I'm not going to dwell on it anymore. The last one is Texas A&M versus North Carolina in the Orange Bowl. This is my most intriguing one. I'm not going to lie. I like both teams here. Texas A&M had a great end of the season after that start with Alabama and it not being strong. But I like North Carolina here. North Carolina is a very strong team, and I don't know if anyone's paid attention to them. They are very inconsistent. But if you looked at that Miami game, Oh my gosh, they have so much power on that offense. They can run up the score on anybody in the nation, I believe. I think they're one of the sleeper teams to beat. They're going to start standing out here in the next year or two once everyone gets older. They are a very young team. They are very young. They're going to come into this bowl game, prove that they belong in the top 10. And when we look at this next year, this team's going to be in the top 10 again. And I think that I just don't Texas A&M hasn't proven to me. They haven't played anyone after. I get it. SEC's the best conference in football. That we've established that. But the teams they played this year, other than Alabama, they had Auburn, and Auburn wasn't really that. They weren't impressive this year to me. I don't see how their wins beat. They put North Carolina went toe to toe with Notre Dame, who's in the playoff. They beat number 10 Miami, who you can say whatever. They were a one-loss team until that game, and I just see Notre Dame not Notre Dame. North Carolina coming out on top on this. I just don't see how Texas A&M beats them. I don't know about you.
I do agree with you. I think North Carolina is a good team. Their rushing attack is absolutely filthy. Just their two running backs are just two studs. I do think North Carolina is on the up. They're coming up. To me, I think this entire game depends on what we see out of A&M. How many players opt out and go for the draft, don't care about the bowl game.
True.
And if A&M shows up wanting to play. I mean, you're talking about the team that they believe wholeheartedly they should have been in the playoff. Jimbo Fisher said he was willing to write the check for how much Notre Dame and Ohio State paid to get into the playoff, which, by the way, hilarious 10 out of 10 comment. I love Jimbo Fisher and his comments on the playoff. Jimbo Fisher is all of us when it comes to just the playoff committee in general. Listen, I think it just depends on what A&M team shows up. If A&M wants to be there, I think A&M wins this game. If A&M doesn't want to be there and they have a lot of guys left out, I don't think they win this game. I think it's game actually pretty high scoring. A&M's defense good, but not fantastic. And they struggle a little bit with the running game, which we know is just fantastic for North Carolina.
Yes.
I think this game, if everyone shows up, I think it's a pretty high scoring game. If A&M wants to be there, I think A&M wins this game. If they don't, would not be surprised to see them lose, though, for sure.
I can agree with you there. I think the Texas A&M team is a strong team, and if they do show up, they will have a chip on their shoulder because they believe they're better than both Ohio. They should be in there over Ohio State and Notre Dame. But this North Carolina team, I've watched them on multiple occasions. They are inconsistent, but when they are hot, there's not a team in this country that I think could outscore this team. I mean, they dropped 60-something on Miami. Granted, it is Miami.
Alabama's
it is
probably
Miami.
Going to outscore them.
Alabama, I mean, it'll be a shootout for sure. It's going to look like a Big 12 game. It's going to look like that Oklahoma versus Texas Tech game when Patrick Mahomes was still there. But I don't know. They will be one of the top teams next year, and I'll give you that. Alabama probably will match up and outscore them, but North Carolina in my book, will take this unless Texas A&M decides to bring everybody and be on page to go for it this game. But real quick, before we get into the rest of the bowl games, I want to get your opinion on this. I've seen the headlines, and since we're talking college football, I was watching the playoff selection show today. How do you feel about the three coaches in the playoff talking crap about Ohio State and that they don't belong? How they were talking that games matter. Do you agree or do you disagree?
Have a point. I mean, Ohio State's only, they beat IU and they beat Northwestern, which are good wins. I do think they have a point. Games matter. I mean, yeah, you can say. I mean, here's the thing. I don't think Ohio State probably loses to anyone else in the Big Ten if they play them. They're not going to lose to Michigan. They're not going to lose to anyone else they would have played in a normal year. I think the coaches have a point. I think they can say what they want. I mean, if you're Notre Dame, you're like, we won 11 regular season games and Ohio State won 5. And you're saying we sat here and won twice as many games against college football opponents. Okay, yeah, you have a point. You beat Power 5 schools, but I mean, here's the thing: if you thought when the Big Ten announced their schedule they were going to play, and you knew that Ohio State, if they don't get all their games in, they're probably only going to play 5-6 games. If they have to have some cancels because of COVID, they're still probably going to go undefeated and still going to win the Big Ten. You had to know that they're going to get in the playoff. You had to know that was going to happen. You had to know the committee was going to put them in. There's too much money to be had there. The committee is all about money and all about matchups. That's what they were going to do. I get it if you're other coaches, you're mad. You're saying we played more games. We proved ourselves throughout the entire season. I get it. but guess what? You don't play on the same playing field.
Yeah.
If Alabama only played, if Alabama was sitting here 6-0, they'd be in too. If Clemson was sitting here 6-0,
Exactly.
they'd be in as well,
Hmm.
and so would Notre Dame. They'd all be in if they were under that circumstance as well. There's nothing Ohio State can do about it. It's more you should be mad at the Big Ten for just waiting so long
Exactly.
and honestly
Hmm.
just handling this in all of the wrong ways. You can be mad at the Big Ten, sure. You can't fault Ohio State for it. They did everything they could. They were begging to play, and the Big Ten was saying no.
Yeah.
I get it. The coaches are mad. There's nothing you can do about it. Just focus on your team and win games. Is my thing. I mean, I get it. You're mad, but there's nothing you can do about it to change it. I want to save the rest of the bowl games for next week and move on
Sounds good.
to this week's NFL slate.
Ooh.
Uh,
Yes.
I know the first game yesterday afternoon. I guess the Bills thrashed the
Bills.
Broncos.
Yes.
I know you're high on the Bills, Jordan.
I am high on the Bills. Everyone's hyping up Josh Allen, and don't get me wrong, I love Josh Allen how he's playing. He's not MVP caliber at all. No, he's not in the conversation for me. Not at all. You can't. He's not putting up numbers to be there. If you look at it, he's not even top 5 in yards or touchdowns. That's not MVP caliber for me. He has, I would say, probably one of the most improved players of the season. The Bills. Let's look at them. They're 11-3 now after that win. Is that what their record is?
I believe so. Yes.
So now they're 11-3. They've clinched the division for the first time in however long. We don't even know at this point because the Patriots have been ruling that, which we'll get to the Patriots later. I want to talk about them. But the Bills, I personally believe they are second in the AFC. And honestly, I think the AFC leads the whole league right now. I think right now it goes 1 Chiefs, 2 Bills. I don't see another team in this league that's better than them. You can say whatever you want about the Steelers. The Steelers are overrated.
It's probably 3 Steelers too. Before you even talk about the Packers.
3 Steelers, yeah, probably 3. But
the NFC,
I'm not high on the Steelers.
NFC sucks.
Yeah, we don't talk about the NFC. They're just not. They don't get to talk any conversation.
Oh man.
I'm sorry, but when you have a team, when you have a division like the NFC East, where your top team is 6-8, you don't belong in the conversation for a good.
It's like the NBA Eastern Conference from a couple years ago when they had 3 teams below 500.
They struggled. Mm-hmm. I mean, they still are because the Magic's always getting in and they suck. But
that's true.
I'm just looking at this game. I know it's the Broncos, and you can't even talk about it because it's the Broncos. They suck. They need to get rid of Drew Lock after this year. They need to part ways. I'm sorry. I know you're a Mizzou fan, and he's a Mizzou boy. They need to part ways with him. He's not helping them at all. And I'm sorry, you don't. But when you look at this Bills team, Josh Allen, even though he's not an MVP candidate, he is a strong quarterback. He threw 28 for 40 in this game, 2 TDs, and almost 400 yards. He's averaging 300 yards on a game on the season, which is not bad. That's still a very good. That's a good season for a quarterback. But on top of that, he's got Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley to throw to. Those are 2 very strong wide receivers that I'm very impressed with this season. And I know you're going to hate me here, but I'm sorry. If we put the Chiefs and the Bills in the playoffs again, if they meet for that conference championship, I'm taking the Bills. Mm-hmm. I am. I know it'll be down there in Kansas City, and it's going to be a big game. I take the Bills in a very close one. I just think they are one of the top teams in this NFL, and I would not be surprised to see them in the Super Bowl this year.
All right. Well, here's the thing. I agree. The Bills are the number 2 team in the AFC right now. I think they're playing good. Here's the thing. MVP is Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, and it's no one else. It's one of those 2.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no argument for anyone else. Those are far and away the best 2 players in the NFL right now this year. And I think that probably makes it harder to think about Josh Allen as an MVP candidate because you look at those 2 guys' numbers and you just think, well, he's not in the same ballpark. And he's not because those 2 dudes are just playing out of their minds. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think if you have to name a third one, you can put Josh Allen in there, maybe Derrick Henry, whatever. I mean, let's be honest. It doesn't really matter. It's Mahomes and Rodgers. That's all it is. I mean, listen, the Bills can put up a lot of points. It was against the Broncos. The Broncos stink. I agree. I love Drew Lock. I will always root for Drew Lock to win. I don't think you're wrong. I think they need to consider their options when moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. We'll talk about more of this when it gets to playoff time.
Yep.
You're not crazy for thinking the Bills will beat the Chiefs. But here's the thing. I mean, the Chiefs, their last 5 games, they've gone on the road to Las Vegas when Las Vegas was still 7-2 and was actually good. Now that team has lost 5 straight and are going to miss
Yeah,
the
we don't talk
playoffs,
about the
which
Raiders anymore.
I love. You hate to see it, except you don't if
No,
you're a
you
Chiefs
love
fan.
to see it. You
They've
love to
gone
see it.
on the road to Tampa Bay, on the road to New Orleans. Where was the other team we went on the road to? We beat Denver at home, and we went on the road.
Who did you guys play? I don't know. You guys are 13-1. I'll
And
give you
it was
that.
another road win. It
Mm-hmm.
what the Chiefs are the Chiefs are having a fantastic season. We are the best team
Yes.
in the league. I, I don't think we lose to the Bills. We've already beaten the Bills in Buffalo.
Yep.
If we face them in the playoffs, we're at home. But I will say this: to me, the Bills are the most threatening team in the AFC. They're more threatening than the Steelers. They are the team that I don't want to see the most in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll talk about this more when it gets close to that time. But I don't think you're crazy for thinking that. I'm still confident as a Chiefs fan, but
Yep.
trust me, the Bills are the team to be feared the most. But speaking of the Bills clinched that division. And the same day, the Pats missed the playoffs for the first time since 2008.
The
I don't see how
Fins,
Cam Newton.
baby. Let's go.
I don't see how Cam Newton returns to
No.
Foxborough next year. I don't.
Yeah,
He
I
was
agree
brought
with
in
you
on a
there.
minimum contract. Bill
Mm-hmm.
Belichick can't stand losing. I mean, I know people love Cam. I know people was, he's a former MVP, deserved more money. Look, Cam Newton, I'm sorry, he's just not one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. You're the Patriots. You expect to win. I'm not
Yep.
saying Jarrett Stidham is necessarily the answer, but listen, you're going to have a high draft pick. Draft Trey Lance. Draft Zach Wilson. If he's still there,
Yep.
somehow draft. Please, NFL teams, please do not let Kyle Trask go to Foxborough. Please do not let him fall that far.
That would be
Please, I'm
deadly.
begging you.
Yeah.
But draft Trey Lance, draft Zach Wilson, draft a Brock Purdy, draft someone to get in there because
Mm-hmm.
you're the Pats. You can't accept losing like this. I know half their starting defense opted out. That stinks. Who knows what's going to happen to them? I don't see how Cam Newton returns there. I just Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick don't accept losing, and Cam Newton won't be back in Foxborough next year. That's just plain and simple.
I think I agree with you here. I was impressed when the season started. They beat the Pitt Dolphins, who even though I am biased towards them, I thought the Dolphins were going to have a great season already, and they have proven to do that. They are 9-5, and they are on the inside, looking to stay into the playoff. Then they fell to the Seahawks in Seattle, which the Seahawks have proven, as we'll probably get to at some point, they have not been very good as of late. And then they beat the Raiders, who, as we know, were good, and then they went on a 4-game losing streak. Granted, the first game was to the Chiefs, but you can't lose like that, especially 33 to 6 to the 49ers. That's not a game you can let happen. A team that
also just got eliminated.
And I agree with you there. Exactly, and I agree with you there. Cam Newton's I'm going to give the blame to Cam Newton. He hasn't looked very well this year, and you can blame it on COVID. Like this year, you can be soft and blame it on COVID. But personally, I don't think you can. I think you can. I think you just blame it on him. He was not very strong. Looking into the season, it looked like they were going to have a good season again, and they made some moves in the offseason to get a strong team, and it just hasn't panned out. And I think it starts with Cam Newton. I think he's out the game, and I think I would be scared to see Kyle Trask sitting there in the NFL draft, and the Patriots are up on the clock.
Man,
because I know that's exactly where they're going. Yeah, no,
that gives me nightmares. Yeah, Cam Newton was worth his league minimum. It was that's all he was. Next game, we want to talk about the Bucks needed a big comeback to beat Atlanta. I just don't see. Listen, I think behind the Packers and behind the Saints, the Bucks are probably the number 3 team right now in the NFC. I just don't see how you can be confident in the Bucks. I mean, I know they came back and made it close against the Chiefs, but I mean, you're talking about needing a comeback to beat teams like the Falcons. They've just been so up and down all year. Tom Brady still has not seemingly figured it out with Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. Gronk is not Gronk. I mean, the running game is just very inconsistent. It's just the Buccaneers have been the definition of inconsistency. They can win the NFC. They can also lose in the first round. I mean, you have no idea what to expect with the Bucks right now.
Yes, and I agree with you. They are very inconsistent right now. But I'm still riding the bandwagon, even though I don't like him. Tom Brady. It's Tom Brady. You can't do anything about him. It always seems to come down to every year they're looking iffy sometimes, and then all of a sudden they get to the playoffs and they're the best team. They look so strong. And I get it. He hasn't looked very good, and they're not clicking yet. But that wide receiving core, if they decide they want to show up for this playoff, you cannot tell me that whole NFC is getting walked through by the Bucks, because I don't see another team stopping that offense.
Oh, they have the most talented receiving core, I mean, in the NFC. Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. You look at the NFC, and this is something I just thought about, but your NFC Championship game, pick two of your three. You're going to get two of these three guys between Aaron Rodgers, who's having MVP season, Drew Brees, and
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brady as your NFC Championship game. That is
Yep.
absolutely fantastic. I mean, after the Packers and the Saints, I don't think the Buccaneers are as good of a team. They haven't had as good of a season. I think you probably see Saints and Packers in the NFC Championship game. But I mean, compelling matchups for sure there. Absolutely.
Hold
I
on,
just don't say I can be confident in the Bucks.
you're telling me Alex Smith and the Washington football team aren't going to make it to the championship?
I
Come
mean,
on.
hey, look, dude, I will always root for Alex Smith. I love Alex Smith. I would, if that does, I will. There is no one in this country who will root harder for Alex Smith than me. I would absolutely love that.
Look, a little sidebar. I'm gonna hop on this train real quick. I know the Redskins. I can't say that anymore. The Washington football team.
The football team, yeah.
They did just win 2 games before this weekend against the Seahawks, who I'm not convinced that they're ready for playoffs. The Seahawks at all,
No.
But the Redskins, I know you can say what you want about the NFC East. It is garbage. It is not strong at all. But for some reason, I'm sliding on this hope that they pull off this wonder upset like they've been doing and towards the end of the season, and this football team could actually pull something in the playoffs. It's not likely. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's going to happen. But I'm not the one to be surprised if they walk into it, they win their first game, and then they pair up against the Packers and somehow win it. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not completely set on the Packers.
Hey, I would love it. I don't know if that happens. I would love Alex Smith. I hope he wins all games in his career. I just checked the score since we're recording this on Sunday night during the Sunday night game. Halftime, the Browns are up 13-3 over the Giants. So it does look like the football team will keep their 1-game lead over the Giants heading into next weekend. Just a couple more things to run through the rest of this NFL recap. The Raiders, they're all but eliminated after their loss to the Chargers and the Titans win. I mean, dude, I don't know what you do with Derek Carr down there. He's looked fantastic in some ways this year. They were 7-2. If they beat the Chiefs, they're tied for the top of the AFC West. I mean, the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes rips out their hearts, and that starts their 5-game losing streak. They're not going to miss the playoffs. I don't know what you do in Las Vegas. I really thought the Raiders were back and were the team to fear for the next couple of years. And anymore, I just don't see how you can see it like that. Colt McCoy is playing for the Giants tonight, which stinks because I know Daniel Jones, nothing stellar, but I mean, it just makes it more fun for that NFC race.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like he's maybe still a couple weeks away. If the Giants losing in tonight, that makes it tough for them to come back and win that division. I don't know if you saw this. Derrick Henry absolutely murdered a guy today. With that
he's still a man. He's still a beast. There's nothing about it. So glad he's on fantasy.
Is still the scariest man on planet Earth when it comes to football, and I will never ever want to try and tackle that guy. Holy cow, he absolutely took a body.
Yeah, and speaking of fantasy, have you looked at it yet? Today.
I have. You are winning. Raheem Mostert, dude, you're terrible when it comes to fantasy. Like, I'm sorry, you were way better when Jimmy G was the quarterback. Just saying. Yeah, tough road for my fantasy team. Tough season.
It is. Real quick with the Raiders.
The Jets. You want to tell us Raiders real quick?
The Raiders, real quick. They're done. You can't even tell me a possible chance of getting in the playoffs. They have to go through the Dolphins next week, and it doesn't happen.
But it doesn't work. They're not making it.
Well, they have to play the Dolphins, who are 7th in the league right now, who are going as of right now getting a playoff spot, and they're not winning it. Now, the only problem is they are battling the Ravens. I want to do one little playoff talk real quick. This AFC race is coming down to the wire, and you have 10-4 Titans, 10-4 Colts, 9-4 Browns, who are looking they're going to go to 10-4. And then you have the 9-5 Dolphins and Ravens. And right now, I love the Dolphins. I really do. But if Lamar Jackson shows out for these next 2 weeks, I don't know if the Dolphins win out for the rest of the season. If they do, they're in because they have the tiebreaker. But if they don't, if they lose one of these, it's done. I don't think Lamar Jackson lets them lose a game and risk the chance of not making it to the playoff. I think it's going to be interesting to watch because I think it's interesting that 7 versus 9 is this week, and I'm going to enjoy watching that game. But I think it's really tough that if the Dolphins were to get in, they would have to win both games, which is possible. They're playing the Raiders and the Patriots. Or no, the Raiders and the Bills. I'm lied. They're playing the Bills, which is going to be very hard. But if they were to pull off that one against the Bills, the
Bills also, that's going to be week 17. The Bills will already most likely have their spot locked in. Probably don't start Josh Allen.
That is
Makes
true.
that game much easier
It
for the
opens up
Dolphins.
possibilities. Yes, I am excited
Yeah,
to see that
I
though, but
agree.
I'll let
It's
that
going to be
slide.
fun to watch. I'm rooting for the Dolphins. They have the best uniforms in the NFL. No one can change
Yes,
my
they do.
mind. Those things are
Hmm.
sexy. I love those uniforms. I wish.
Hold on
I
a
mean, I
second.
love the Chiefs. I love their uniforms, but man, those are sexy.
Yeah, let me get you real quick. Hold on. Yes, sir, baby. Dolphins. Tua
There
right
you
there.
go.
Tua Tagovailoa. Yes, sir. That's the jersey to rep every week. But
Hey,
I'll let the Dolphins slide
what a
right now.
switch that made by Brian Flores. Brian Flores has
Yes,
to be
it
one of the
was.
candidates for Coach of the Year. I mean, I was
Mm-hmm.
I love Ryan Fitzpatrick. I wanted him to get it so bad. I didn't agree with the switch, but man, that has looked like a great switch. Everyone
Yes.
trashed it at the time, but I mean, that looks great. Tua looks like he's going to be a stud. That's great for the
Mm-hmm.
Dolphins. The Jets, they finally get a win. They beat the Rams. I mean, if you're the Rams, you're making the playoffs, but man, how you just cannot lose games like this late in the
Nah.
season. That is just absolutely disheartening. If you're a Jets fan, this game is absolutely disheartening for you as well
Yep,
because
that's what
now
I was
you're
about
in a
to
battle
say.
for the number one pick with the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, you were just
Ah.
snatching the number two pick from the jaws of the number one. I don't know how you're doing it. It just sad. I mean, Trevor Lawrence.
I don't think Trevor Lawrence ends up at either places. I think he does what I think he pulls an Eli Manning and gets traded on draft day. I think he does. I think he tells
That
both
would
teams, "I'm
be.
not playing you.
I
I'm
would
not
love
playing
for
for you."
Trevor Lawrence to go to a contender. I love Trevor Lawrence, but man,
Mm-hmm.
just sad. Just a terrible outcome for both teams. The Rams, you
Yeah.
cannot lose to the Jets. The
And now
Jets,
the Jets
I
are
mean,
screwed.
you should have
They're
kept your
battling
defensive
for the
coordinator. If you
first
keep
spot.
your defensive coordinator, you probably lose this game. But instead, you fire your defense coordinator, who was the only guy who clearly
Yep.
realized that you were supposed to be tanking right now. I don't know why you did that. I mean, just a sad game. The Chiefs still the best team in the NFL. They pulled out against the Saints on the road. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is just still, I mean, absolutely
Yeah.
disgusting and filthy. I can talk about Patrick Mahomes all day, but this is not a Patrick Mahomes podcast. Um,
Tomorrow. Tomorrow the Steelers play the Bengals. You think the Bengals get it at home, or do you think it's the Steelers all the way?
I mean, if the Bengals sell up Joe Burrow, it's a fun game to watch. I mean, I know the Steelers have lost two in a row. I know they just lost to Alex Smith, but listen, one-legged Alex Smith is still better than Ryan Finley. Ryan Finley's not an NFL quarterback. There's a reason he was the third string. I mean, I think it's probably a terrible game to watch. I don't think either team probably puts up a lot of points since the Steelers just aren't
Nope.
super high scoring most of the time. I think it's probably a terrible game to watch. Chances of me watching it, honestly, probably not high. Might be watching college basketball. I don't know. Probably not going
It's
to be a
probably
great
college
game. The
basketball for
Steelers
me.
should roll. I don't know who's really excited, honestly, to watch Ryan Finley play on Monday Night Football. Probably not many people, but that's what happens when COVID messes
Bengals and
up the
Steelers
schedule.
fans. Yeah, I'm not big on the Bengals either in this game. I think they lose this. It's interesting to watch them sitting at the bottom of the league again. They're third worst team in the league, and it'll be interesting to see what they do in the offseason this season because I'm really hoping they can put some pieces together for Joe Burrow because if not, he needs to get out of there. But
Draft an offensive lineman with every single pick.
Yep, right there. That's
boom,
all you
boom,
need.
boom. Just
Because
draft
they
them all.
really need to protect him. If they don't protect him, I would get out of there. That would be my first move as Joe Burrow.
If you don't protect him, it doesn't matter if he has guys that can catch the ball. If he can't even throw it, he got to be able to throw it first and not tear his ACL. We don't even know if he's going to play next year. Lots of things to talk about there, but that's neither here nor there. Let's move on to our final topic today. Some college basketball recap this week. I was at work. I was not able to watch the game of the week yesterday afternoon. But Gonzaga beats Iowa 99-89. Absolute thrill. I mean, have we seen Gonzaga? I mean, they've now handled Iowa. They've handled Kansas by dropping just a boatload of points. And it's not like this team's necessarily living and dying by the three either. This team just they score from all 3 points from the floor. They score in the paint. They score mid-range. They score from three. This Gonzaga team might be one of the most complete offenses that we've seen this early in a season in college basketball in a long time. I mean, they are just dropping boatloads of points on everyone. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're Kansas, you're Iowa, or if you're whoever else on their schedule. Gonzaga is just going to threaten to score 100 points on you night in and night out, which is just ridiculous for college basketball.
Yes,
I mean,
it is.
no one drops 100 in Power 5 games, let alone AP top 5 matchups. And Gonzaga has almost done it twice now. Just ridiculous by the Zags.
And I agree with you there. I think Gonzaga is the top contender right now, obviously, as they are number one. I am still not dead set on them actually being one by the end of the season. I think we stay and watch this out. Jalen Suggs is a great player. I love him, and I loved watching him. But I'm telling you right now, I don't care what the score was. Iowa is the team to beat still. I know they were struggling at the beginning of this game. They came back and brought it close because they were down by 20 at one point. That is a fact.
Yeah,
They were down by 20. I was
that's
in a
true.
car. I didn't get to watch this game, but I did. I was watching the game cast come through ESPN app. This team fought back, and Luke Garza is clearly the best player in the nation. I don't care who you put up there. Luke Garza is not getting beat, and this is why. And let me just, before we move on from this is where things get interesting. Jack Nunge. I don't know if you guys have heard the name. We know him because he does come from our hometown. He is going to be the sleeper player for this team.
He's the stud off the bench, dude.
Yes, he needs to. He comes off the bench. He needs to start. He's getting the same amount of time as starters, and he needs to just start side by side with Garza. You put those two down in the paint. Who's stopping you guys? Those two will body everyone in the league, and they're not going to be stopped.
The only problem with that is if you do start Nunge at the same time, if Garza gets in foul trouble, then you have no one to bring off the bench. I think that's why Nunge's probably still coming off the bench. But hey, when they're both on the floor, they're studs. Garza, far and away the top player in college basketball.
True.
Weiskamp had a solid day. What's his face? The other Jordan Bohannon was all right. But the other guard, I can't think of his name. Colin McCaffrey struggled. I believe he was 0 of 5 from 3, I think. I'm pretty sure it was him. I can double check
Bohannon was.
here.
Bohannon was.
Okay, never mind. So it was Bohannon that struggled. Bohannon struggled.
Both of them struggled.
Listen, Iowa's fantastic. They do live and die by the three a little much. They do have Luke Garza.
Yes, that's true.
I still think they're an absolutely fantastic team. I disagree. I think Gonzaga is the team to beat until they lose. But hey, dude, listen. College basketball, if this college basketball team isn't going to be fun, if you're a fan of a Big Ten team, if you're a fan of an SEC team or a Big 12 team, those three conferences are absolute mayhem right now. I know the SEC doesn't have as many ranked teams, but that conference is deep. I think you'll see a lot more ranked teams as the season goes on. The ACC, not as great. Florida State, their highest ranked team, gets upset by UCF this week. I mean, the ACC, just all their big dogs losing. North Carolina not off to a fantastic start.
Yeah.
Duke, we know they're struggling. Not great for them. I think the Big Ten is
Big
best.
Ten's the toughest.
The Big Ten and the Big 12
are
the best two conferences, in my opinion. Going to the Big 12 here for a second, Kansas beats Big 12. Or Kansas beats Big 12. That's ironic. They do beat the Big 12
always,
year in and year out. Yep. But they beat Texas Tech at Tech. That's a massive win to start the season. Tech is one of their biggest threats, beside Baylor, obviously their biggest threat to ending their streak of winning regular season titles, or at least a share of them. But, I mean, dude, Texas Tech is a legit team. Mac McClung is a beast. Kansas still beats them at Tech. I don't know if you were watching that game. I think you watched parts of it, maybe?
I watched parts of it, but I haven't been able to watch any college basketball because I've always just been busy with either school or going places. But I'll tell you what, although I will give you this, Kansas, they did good and they won this game. I'm still not big on Kansas. I've never been and still won't be. Every year they come into the year, it's just like Oregon in football. You come in each year, they're ranked, they look good. They lose early, then they keep the season going, and then they lose early in March Madness. I think the same happens this year. I don't think they're the strongest team. I don't think they're the strongest team in the Big Ten. I think Texas has the best shot to beat them this year. I think they're one of the strongest in the Big 12. No, I think Texas.
Texas, okay.
I think Texas.
See, Baylor's
competes.
number 2 team in the country.
Baylor too, yeah. Baylor I'm not big on, but I also haven't watched them, so I can't exactly speak on them. Texas Tech I do believe will be up there as well. Texas Tech, Baylor, and Kansas will be the 4 teams this year to watch when they play each other because those will be the biggest games of this year, and it'll be interesting to watch.
You did forget one who Kansas actually plays, I believe, on Tuesday this week. Number 8 West Virginia. This is a massive matchup. It's at Allen Fieldhouse on Tuesday.
Virginia.
Kansas versus West Virginia. West Virginia, I mean, that group is studs. They beat Richmond. They beat several groups. This game's at Allen Fieldhouse. Every other year, you always pick Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse. No one goes into Allen Fieldhouse and beats Kansas, especially during conference play. But there's no fans this year. So at Allen Fieldhouse, it's a neutral site. I know you still have to travel and stuff, but there's not the lure of playing at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. West Virginia, here's some about West Virginia. Their guards, it is I mean, it's not press Virginia type guard level, but, I mean, it's West Virginia. They're Bob Huggins guards. They're going to be pesky. They're going to fight, and they're going to annoy you. I think this is a really tough game for Kansas to win. I'm not picking West Virginia. I think this is a coin flip. But it's this really tough game for Kansas to win. Every other year they win this game at Allen Fieldhouse, but
Mm-hmm.
West Virginia just has the type of team, the type of defense that's really going to annoy Kansas. It's going to make them hard to get their offense going. Kansas already struggles to get their offense going a lot of times. And I think West Virginia just does what Kansas does, and they do it a little bit better.
I can agree with you there. I think it's going to be a very close game, and it is a coin flip. I honestly forgot about West Virginia. Like I said, I haven't been on top of Big Ten, or not Big Ten, college basketball as much yet, but I'm planning on it this week, starting to get into it. Would you say that's game of the week?
I mean, I think it's got to be your other option for game of the week. In my opinion, number 19, or I'm sorry, this was last week, but Rutgers beat Illinois last week,
Yeah.
which is a great upset. And Rutgers is 6-0. The Scarlet Knights are legit. They play Ohio State, who I know just lost to Purdue, so maybe not as good of a game. I think this is probably game of the week. Your other top 15 match. I mean, that's Kansas West Virginia's top 10 matchup. It is game of the week. You can't get any better than that. The other one that's close to that is Michigan State versus Wisconsin. Michigan State number 4. They might move up to number 3 after Iowa lost. I know it's to Gonzaga. Sometimes the polls are weird. They might move up to number 3. Wisconsin probably going to crack the top 10 now after Creighton lost this week. That opens up a top 10 spot for Wisconsin, who I don't know if you saw this. They blew out Louisville like 82-45 or something on Saturday. Wisconsin just absolutely murdered them. I don't know how good Louisville is this year. I don't know how good Wisconsin is. I didn't watch the game, but just based on that line, that's an intriguing game against Michigan State. That's also a fun one to watch. But yeah, Kansas versus West Virginia absolutely is the game of the week this week. That is a massive matchup in the Big 12.
I'm going to have to flip it on you and say the Big 10 between Michigan State and Wisconsin is going to be the game of the week this week. I am going to have to ride with the Big 10 train again. They are the strongest team or strongest conference in my opinion. There are so many teams this year who I have never in my life seen them be good in basketball, and they're sitting here ranked this year. If you told me going into this season Rutgers is going to be 6-0, I would have slapped you and said stop talking because you have no idea what basketball is. But here we are now. They're sitting at 6-0,
especially when they have to play Illinois
against a very good Illinois. Yeah, and they beat Illinois. That blows my mind.
Illinois is good. Illinois is good,
but they're now on they have now lost 2 games, and it's gonna be tough to start bouncing back again when they're about to go into conference play.
They've lost 3 now. But
3?
All 3 of their they've lost. They lost to Baylor, which obviously Baylor number 2 team in the country. Not a bad loss at all. They lose to Mizzou. That's my Tigers, baby. Also a good team. Not a bad loss, but if you're Illinois, you were like number 6 in the country in that game.
Exactly.
You expect to win that, and then you lose to Rutgers, which I mean, Rutgers ranked only 6 spots behind you. Not an easy game. Once again, you should win that. If you're Illinois, you're probably sitting there feeling that you should only have 1 loss right now. You did beat Duke. That's great for you. I mean, you should feel like you have 1 loss, 2 maximum. You really hate to have 3 losses right now. They're still a great team. Ayo Dosunmu, one of the best players in college basketball. I know you haven't gotten a chance to watch him yet. That dude is a stud. He is a lottery pick for sure. I mean, my goodness, that guy is absolutely fun to watch. Illinois is a fun team to watch. Kofi Coburn, big man, and Deshaun great players. Illinois is a fun team to watch. I'd look for them to rebound. I would not want to be the next team to play Illinois after a couple losses like this. But yeah, dude, Rutgers, I mean, the Big Ten is, I agree with you, it is the deepest conference. The Big 12 is right there behind them. But man, the Big Ten, I mean, just up and down. It's so good. IU's good. Purdue with Matt Painter, as long as he's at Purdue will always have a shot to win games going in. Ohio State, they were just ranked. They probably fall after their loss to Purdue this week. But Ohio State, I mean, if they turn around and beat Rutgers this week, they're right back in the rankings. So, I mean, Ohio State's legit. Michigan State's legit. I believe Michigan's also ranked.
Michigan is 25th.
You just have there's so many teams in the Big Ten that just have shots. I mean, Nebraska, they're getting better. I think Penn State's and Minnesota also getting better. I mean, probably not, not by no means ranked teams, but they are getting better.
Yes.
I think the Big Ten is just so deep this year.
Yes, and on top of that, the Big Ten, I think, has one of the best classes of big men ever.
Oof.
If you're looking at that, because you got Garza.
Some big boys in there.
Isn't the kid from Illinois the big one as well?
Yeah, Kofi Coburn, he's 7-footer. Yeah.
Yep. You've got IU, you've got Trace Jackson Davis, who hasn't scored less than 20 points this season. He's having a Player of the Year type of season so far, and he's showing out. He's not Player of the Year, but he is definitely one of the more like hyped up players. And then you also have this 7'4" kid out of Purdue that I've never heard of until yesterday when I watched them play Notre Dame.
Dude is massive.
So, and he looks just like Yao Ming. So, I mean, you can't. And then the Big Ten, I don't see how you could tell me any other conference in this nation right now is going to go toe to toe with them and beat them. The ACC couldn't do it. We proved that. The ACC, the only game that impressed me was Florida State beating IU. Other than that, there wasn't a game that impressed me.
I think the Big 12 has an argument. The Big 12 does have 3 teams in the top 10 right now with Kansas, West Virginia, and Baylor. They have Texas Tech floating around there in the top 20, along with, I believe, who's the other team up there in the top 20 from the Big 12?
Oh, hold on.
Oh, Texas. Texas is up there as well for the Big 12. The Big 12, I think, better on the top end with 3 teams in the top 5, but the Big 10 for sure, top to bottom. I do agree that is better than the Big 12. They are the toughest conference in college basketball this year. But, man, college basketball's fun. The SEC, also a deep conference.
We don't
haven't quite gotten their recognitions yet, but trust me, I'm not a big SEC guy. I know Mizzou's an SEC. I'm still a Big 12 guy. I love the Big 12. But the SEC is deep this year. Mizzou's legit.
I'll give you that. I'll give you some of these teams. There's some teams in the SEC that are surprising me, and they are showing out. I'm telling you right now, Kentucky will not. They don't belong in any conversation.
Kentucky is garbage.
Ever
Kentucky is garbage.
They're straight trash this year.
They're absolute hot garbage. Cameron Fletcher, if you're listening to this, come home, come transfer to Mizzou, please. You'll get playing time. Kentucky is. I mean, they're bad. Personally, I don't mind seeing Kentucky lose. I'm not a fan of Kentucky, not a fan of John Calipari.
Yeah.
I don't mind seeing them lose at all. Florida probably not going to do as well now with Keontae Johnson, I believe his name, the guy that unfortunately collapsed last week. That's scary.
Yeah.
They're going to struggle more without him. He was a massive player for them, a projected lottery pick. So they're going to struggle a bit more. But Alabama is good. Arkansas is good with Moses Moody, who is I think like a top 25 recruit. He's a stud. They're good. Tennessee, they're probably going to win the conference at this point. At least they're the favorites too. They have a great lineup as well. And there's just other teams. A&M is deep. There's a lot of teams in the SEC that's deep. It's going to be a fun conference to watch, but by no means is it the Big 12 or the Big 10 for sure.
No. And then, okay, so real quick, I didn't see this until now. Michigan State lost today.
Michigan State lost today?
They lost by 14 to Northwestern.
Wow, okay, man, because when I was doing my pre-show notes, that game had just started.
Yeah, so no, they lost by 14. This kid named Boo Booey for Northwestern, that's a name, by the way, dropped 30 points in 24 minutes.
I mean, not as good as General Booty, the quarterback recruit in the class of 2021. I don't know if you've seen General Booty. Shout out to you. If you want to come on our podcast, we'd love to have you. But, wow, there you go. That's another Big Ten team now. Northwestern.
Hold on.
A win over
Northwestern's 4-1 and beating a ranked team now. And they had a kid named Pete Nance. He went 15 and 12 in this game. 15 points, 12 rebounds. And I thought there was another stat that said 12, but I could be on something. Hold on.
I mean, here's the thing.
Defensively,
if you're looking, you look at the Big Ten, there's not a single team in the Big Ten with a record below 500. I mean, you have a team like Minnesota who's 6-1. They just lost their first game in conference. I know they played cupcakes, but still they didn't lose. Ohio State 6-1. Maryland sitting down there at 4-2. Penn State sitting there at 3-2. Nebraska at 4-3. Not great teams, but not bad teams. I mean, then you have Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, Rutgers, and Michigan State. I know they just lost, but they're Purdue. I mean, they're sitting there at 6-2. Purdue has losses to Clemson and Miami. I think are their only 2 losses. So I know Clemson was ranked. They just lost again this week as well. But, I mean, Purdue, not bad losses. They're going to be a solid squad. Matt Painter is honestly one of my favorite coaches in all of college basketball. I know you, obviously, being an IU guy, you're not a big Purdue guy. But Matt Painter, I think he's just a fantastic coach. I mean, Northwestern now advances to 4-1 after their win over Michigan State. So that's a squad that's also looking up. The Big Ten, I mean, that's just a conference where you're going to see upset you with the Big Ten this year.
Yeah, it's going to be up and down.
If you're a top team in the Big Ten, you're going on the road, you are automatically on upset alert this year in the Big Ten.
You're scared. You don't go into a single game thinking you've got it.
I don't think you can. Everyone's on upset alert in the Big Ten.
Exactly. And, like, if you look at the standings right now, Michigan State and Ohio State are in the bottom 5 just because they lost their first conference game. Yep. And that's it. You've got teams who aren't even ranked that are sitting up at the top. Like, this season for the Big Ten is going to be so fun to watch because not a single team is bad. Well, I can't say that because I guarantee Nebraska or somebody's going to come into the Big Ten and lose every game because it's just how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a team that ends up losing everyone. But it could be different. It could be this year where every single team wins at least 2 or 3 games of the Big Ten Conference, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it. They are the strongest,
it's just
in my
such a
opinion.
fun conference.
Yeah.
I mean, the only argument, the Big 12 also has, not ranked, but TCU at 6-2, Oklahoma at 5-1,
Mm-hmm.
and then Oklahoma State, who has like one of the top recruits in the country, and Cade Cunningham
Yep.
at 6-2. Those squads are deep; they'll be tough to beat. But I mean, hey, listen, we're going to talk a ton more about college basketball the rest of this year.
For sure.
I love college basketball. You love college basketball. I mean, it's only getting started.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to be one of the best seasons for college basketball ever.
Oh, 100%.
Last year was one of the best seasons for college basketball ever, as far as just so many teams that could win it. Last year's March Madness, I thought it was going to be one of the best March Madnesses ever, as far as there was no like clear favorites. It was going to be so good. I think we're shaping up to have the same thing this year. I can't wait.
Yeah, I can't either. I'm really excited to see how this goes, and like you said, we'll get back to that more later. I'm not going to keep going on and on about this. I want to get one last thing to touch on. I want to touch on the season that's about to start, the NBA. I don't know.
All right, let's close up on the NBA. Here's my computer is about to die. I'm only at 10%. So
there we go.
NBA real quick.
First things I want to get. I'm really excited for the season, but then again, I'm gonna expect some upsets. I think some teams are gonna be tired from the bubble and not having enough rest, and the Heat and the Lakers are gonna be interesting to watch because I think those two teams are gonna be a little bit slower to start. They're gonna be good still, but they're gonna be slow to a start. I think my big question going into this was before we get the season started, who's your favorite going into it?
Man, I mean, this is tough. I think the Lakers obviously return. I think their roster actually got better, in my opinion. I know there was Dwight Howard, but then you add Montrezl Harrell. That's an upgrade, in my opinion.
Exactly.
I think the Lakers roster got better. I don't see. I mean, I think they're a favorite. I think the Heat are a favorite to, get back there again. They return basically all the key players from that team. I think did the Heat add Serge Ibaka? I think they did, right?
No, the Clippers did.
The Clippers added because Kawhi texted. Yeah, that's right. The Clippers added Serge. I think the Clippers had an opportunity to return, but they do still got playoff P.
Yeah.
Maybe in Pacer fan, you know how I feel about playoff P. He's playoff P for a reason. So, I don't know about the Clippers. I think the Heat have a great shot. I think the Bucks. I just don't know if they added enough. Listen, the trade for Drew Holiday, absolutely the move you had to make. You had to make a move like that to add a shooter, to add a guy like Drew Holiday. I think he can take that team to the next level. I think the Bucks are the favorite in the Eastern Conference now, adding Drew Holiday. I know the Heat are good, but man, that takes that team to a whole nother level. I think that's a fantastic move by the Bucks to add Drew Holiday. I think that makes them the favorites in the East. I think the Lakers still have to be the favorites in the West. I am looking forward to the Warriors. Don't sleep on Steph Curry. That dude can still ball. Draymond is still good. Clay is still good. Clay's out for the season. That stinks. I think the Warriors, honestly, they were going to be my dark horse favorite until Clay got hurt. That stinks. I still think the Warriors have a great team. I still think they're probably number 3 in the West now at this point. But listen, my preseason favorite going in, I'm not a LeBron guy. I don't love LeBron. I don't want to see him win another title, but I don't see how it's anyone but the Lakers right now until I see a team really step up. But if I had to pick someone else, it would be the Bucks with adding Drew Holiday.
Fair enough. I like it. I agree with you on the Lakers. The Lakers are probably preseason on almost everyone's list right now. They're the favorite in the West for me. I definitely am taking them in the West. Obviously you've got, the Jazz are looking to be another, mid-Western Conference team in the playoffs. Sure. The Nuggets could come back and have another great season, and that could be I see them being
Michael
the
Porter
team to
Jr.
compete. But I think the dark horse for me is going to be the Pelicans. I think the Pelicans are a year in now with their whole team, and they have a very good squad. Brandon Ingram's going to look very good this year. Zion's going to get a full season. Jackson Hayes is my big guy of the whole league, and I love him, and I'm waiting for him to develop.
And they added Steven Adams.
Exactly. So this team is so deep now.
And I think they got Bledsoe back from the Bucks too.
I believe so.
And
they still have Lonzo,
Holiday,
right?
But he's a good point guard that they need for that roster.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they still have Lonzo. I don't think they got rid of him yet.
They still have Lonzo. They still have Josh Hart.
Exactly. So this team is looking to be a very strong competitor if they are developed well enough. I don't know if they are
Mm-hmm.
developed well enough or not. I'm gonna let the first week or two go, and then we'll get back into that. The Eastern, however, I I love Tyler Hero. I love Jimmy Butler. I love that team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think they break the top two in the East. I think number one will be the Bucks, just because I think Giannis is going to control the East again, and he's going to do
Yep.
his thing. I think number two, and this is my sleeper for the whole season. You're gonna be spicy. This is gonna be spicy for you. The Boston Celtics. I think Jason
That's
Tatum,
not where I thought you were
Jalen
going with
Brown
that.
are gonna come together. I think those two are gonna come together real
They're good.
well. I think Kemba is gonna come back and is Kemba hurt? I don't know if he is or not. I've been playing a lot
I
of
can't
2K
remember.
lately, and he's been hurt on there.
I can't
But
remember. I
he's
I
gonna
haven't
come
kept up with
well.
the NBA as much
That
this
team,
the last couple weeks.
that team's been so disappointing the past couple seasons. I know, and they have so
Mm-hmm.
much talent on that team. I really believe this can be the year because Jason Tatum just came off his best year yet, and I think he's going to be even better this year. I think Jalen Brown steps it up a notch. I think Daniel Tice comes back for the Celtics and is a very great
Daniel
big man for
Tice,
them.
yes.
I think they are the dark horse in the East to come in and just beat the Bucks easily in the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs and go into the championship. I think the Heat finished third, and my other hot take for the NBA this season: Bulls get a top 8 in the East. That's my opinion there. I don't
Okay.
really think there's anything else special about this season, but
I think the other team in the
that's
East
where
we
I'm
have to
going.
mention real quick is my computer's on 2%, so we got to wrap this up before my computer dies. Is the Brooklyn Nets with Kyrie and KD.
Oh, yep, I
I
forgot about
forgot
them.
about them. I remember that while you were talking. I think you did too. They're going to be up there in the East as well. I don't think they beat the Bucks, but
Yeah.
they're great. Listen, we got to wrap this up before my computer dies. But
Yep.
Jordan, I think this was a great first episode. I know I had a ton of fun doing
This
it.
was.
I know you did too. You got any closing remarks for us?
Honestly, this has just been, like he said, I think this was a great experience for us, and I hope everyone will enjoy this first episode and come back for more. If you did enjoy, please like and subscribe, because this is a YouTube channel and that's what you say here. So other
Absolutely,
than
like
that,
and
I think that's
subscribe,
about
baby.
it.
Yeah,
Yep.
hey, like Jordan said, we appreciate everybody listening. We know this wasn't fantastic. It was our first episode. We're just starting, but we appreciate you guys listening to the first episode of the Sports Authorities, and we can't wait for you guys to tune in next week. So, with that being
Yes,
said,
sir.
thanks guys for listening. Like and subscribe, like Jordan said, and until next week, we'll see you.